See how this goes. All right, so I way overdid this presentation stuff, so I apologize in advance, but I get kind of thorough with this stuff. So my name is Jason Jerome, and this is my final project. What I decided to do was just build a simple application, well-defined feature, and I wanted to explore the whole end-to-end process. I just wanted to see what I needed to do to push this thing over the finish line, and what exactly I could come up, what type of challenges I could come up with. So introducing, without any further ado, the library hold wait application. All it does is it estimates how long you have to wait for a book or a movie at the library. Some examples, there's a simple formula, don't pay too much attention to that, but a good example is there's 15 copies of a book at the library. I am 30th in line. There's about 14 days of waiting, so I know I got 28 days to wait. Not the greatest example. More realistic would be if I was number 300 out of 30, which is very possible at the library. So I know 5 months of waiting, I can probably read another book or movie or two before that comes around. So it gives me an opportunity to make some planning decisions. So the next thing I had to do, now that I had my one feature, was come up with a way to present this. One of the things I've always noticed is no matter how many features your app has, if it doesn't look good, you're going to lose to your competitor. So I looked for some inspiration and came up with this, the old school, I don't know if you're old enough to remember these things, but the old school little inside the book cover cross-out name thing. So I found this picture on the web and thought this is a good example. So let's go and see if I can get this app to come up. So this is the thing? Yep. Yes. Okay, so my app is right here. And there it is. So a lot of this is just kind of show, but here's my number of copies, my hold, my checkout period is 14 days. And I hit the process button, and I can see I have a 28-day wait. The other screen I have, this is a very complicated app, just some preferences. And these are just default values for any of this. Maybe my library has 7 days instead of 14. So that's basically it in a nutshell. But I do have a couple other screens of some challenges that I went through. There's just a little snapshot. The first thing I thought was, well, when I wrote this, I thought if I went ahead and I did everything automatically, it would just work. But then I discovered soon after is that the user didn't really have to do that much, and they would just be confused and like, what am I doing? What's happening? So I put this process button in. You see here, I thought I was going to be all slick and use a grid layout and just add some borders like HTML style. It turns out grid layouts are not for making a grid. They're for laying things out into a grid. So what I had to do was I built some views with a height of 1 and a width of 1 to make these lines. But my problem is that I had to repeat them manually. So if you ran this on like a Nexus 7, it would be blank on the bottom. But I think if I did it again, I could just calculate my screen size and repeat them. But for this app, it didn't really matter. And then things I discovered, this is stuff where you show this to people and they really give you a lot of feedback. And every time I think they aren't, they do. So the first thing I thought would be a good idea is to have my preferences not change the current value to only be the default. So if they had typed some information in and then they went to preferences, I didn't want it to overwrite the data that was already there. But I found out really quickly that was a stupid idea, and so it just does it as you'd expect. The other thing was, it's kind of silly, but select all on focus. That's just when you tap on something, it selects it so that if you're using the device with one hand. This is something I didn't see until I got to the device. On the emulator, you don't really notice. But one hand, tap on something, just like here, it just selects it automatically. You can type on it. and then allowing the users to select and copy the result. That was just, well, what are they going to do with this information after they get it? They might want to select it, copy it, and take it out of my app. And there was no harm in letting them do that. So I just added that in.
So, real quick, you actually implemented copy and paste?
Well, it's already built in, so as long as if you hold down on the, I can show you later, but if you hold down on any of the fields, it comes up with do you want to copy, paste, or cut, or so forth. And then finally was this external fonts and smudges. I got this mom's typewriter font from the web, and this was just amazing. When I showed some friends like before I started working on the UI, and they were just like, "What are you doing making this app? You should have made the tip app. This is the dumbest thing you've ever done." And then afterwards, they were like super excited. Like one of my friends, I thought he was just going to give me money for the app, and I was like, it's still the same useless app you told me about before, but these stupid smudges and typewriter is just it just makes all the difference.
You download the TrueType font file from online? And
you just put it in the asset folder and you can load it up and so forth. And I can put all this code. I might just post this code on our forum tomorrow. I don't really need it for anything. And you can see how I did it if you really care. But that's all I have.
What about the smudges? How did you get the smudges to appear?
Well, I just...
Yeah, it looks real. I thought, oh, his phone's dirty.
So I did these by... I just brought in the image. And at first I thought I was going to be super fancy and have a transparent background. And then I just found... I used Photoshop. I used the GIMP. And you could just do a paintbrush, and I kind of splotted all over the place. And I had this great idea. I made this like huge file. And I thought I was just going to show like a section of the file. But then it turns out that Android just automatically resizes it. And I only have smudges, so I didn't care about aspect ratio. And so it just made it look messier and awesomer. So at the end of the day, it worked out really well. But again, I don't know why you'd sell this thing, but that's all I got. Unless you have any other questions.